currently an English teacher at his alma mater, Fairfield High School. His brief tenure at Fairfield has taught, in his brief tenure at Fairfield High, he has taught a reading intervention class to help the school struggling readers to get to grade level and 9th and 11th grade English class. His philosophy of education is that all kids deserve freedom, which is only assessed through the mind. He gives kids the tools to do this every day in his classroom, and also volunteers his time at the Solano County Library, teaching adults to read. James was born in Riverside, California, and spent his formative years in Moreno Valley, California. He moved with his mother and 2 sisters to Fairfield at the age of 8. James received his bachelor's in political science at San Francisco State University, and will be completed with his master's in teaching in Teaching Credential summer 2024, with the goal of starting his doctorate program shortly after. James enjoys reading, writing, and exploring California. He is excited to work with the WCP Tri-City chapter as the youth chair, where he hopes to dedicate his free time to helping young Black kids learn about and amass political power. And our speaker today is Thea Torres Tusa. She grew up in Fairfield and Vacaville, and she received her Bachelor of Arts in English from CSU Sacramento. She is credentialed from CSU Sacramento and has a Master's of Arts in Language and Literacy from CSU Sacramento. With literacy comes power, empowering historically marginalized groups, starts in the classroom with the ability to read, and she hopes to empower more in this teaching.
Can you hear me? All right.
Hi.
Hey, so really quick, point of personal privilege. I just want to say that I work with Mrs. Torres Tusa, and she is a role model. I love her so much. She's so great. She's passionate with our students. She, in and outside of the classroom, she is going to make sure our kids have the absolute best. And I'm excited to do this with you. Thank you for being here. Fun fact, it's her birthday today, so happy birthday to Ms. Torres Tusa. She's taking some time out to have a conversation with us. Thank you.
Let me just say
Okay.
thank you to you, because I would not have even been considered for this had you not considered me. So I feel really honored to have my expertise in this, Big Brother, ever getting a chance to talk about something that I'm so passionate about with another teacher who is equally, if not more, passionate about getting our kids to learn how to read. It's nice to have a conversation like that.
I'm excited about it. I'm really, I watched this 3 or 4 times today. And then a couple times over the past week, and I can't get out of my mind the statement, we're all equal, but we don't stay equal. Can you speak to that and sort of talk to me about your literacy story? What's your origin story? I remember when I was younger, my mom had us sitting in front of the TV for Sesame Street, but we were also hooked on phonics, right? And we had to read for an hour a day, every day. What's your literacy story, excuse me?
So I'm a huge believer that literacy does start at home. And I am a new mom, and I have a baby that is 7 months old, and I am constantly speaking to him. And I encourage everyone around me to speak to him and just to narrate what you're doing. Like that mother was speaking about, saying, oh, the water's boiling. Look at the water boil. And the child says boil. Now we're associating what we are talking about in our language with what it actually is. And I was fortunate enough to have a mom who also did that. My mom constantly spoke to me, and I went into kindergarten advanced in my reading skills. My mom constantly read to me, and I remember thinking, when I was reading Harry Potter for the first time that my mom was reading it way too slow. This is going way too slow as a family. I have to read it on my own because I want to know what happens next. And I think fueling that curiosity of what happens next and wanting to be nosy and to know what's going to happen in these stories. And I was just fortunate enough to have that push and that pressure. Something else that I think really speaks to my journey within literacy is that my mom, again, made me hyper aware that I'm a woman in this space. And being in this world, you can be beautiful, you can be all these things as a woman, and that can get you in any door, but you better have something amazing to say once you get in that room. And being in these rooms that are privileges to be in, the only way you can stay in these rooms is to be educated. And so my mom pushed education on me, and then after that it was very much like, all right, it's up to you, you got this, right? And I think that is who I owe some massive amounts of credit to.
I love that. All moms, right? My mom was, I remember when I was younger, I didn't get in trouble, but one of my teachers called home and she said, your son reads too much, that's all he wants to do. He doesn't want to play on the playground, he doesn't care about these kids, all he wants to do is read. And my mom was like, I fail to see the problem with that, right? Can those kids read, right? Like, but maybe like start a book club with that little boy, right? So my mom was very instrumental in that as well. I want to know how you got into this work. So I also teach at Fairfield High School, and my first year I taught a reading intervention class, and it was a struggle because you had ninth graders reading at a second grade reading level, and that's tough. And I started to understand, just like it was mentioned in the film, this is the pipeline. Mm-hmm. This is where it begins. And that's what sort of like made me, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to focus on. What was your journey into this space as a literacy advocate? Yeah.
So I went to Sac State, and I fell in love with their stuff. We get to read books and then talk about them. It was awesome. As an English major, and I was like, I fell in love with teaching, or had the idea that I wanted to be a teacher pretty early on. I didn't know where I would fit in that sphere, and my mother-in-law taught in Fairfield Unified for like 30 plus years, and I volunteered in her second grade class and quickly found out that I do not fit in the second grade space. I don't have the right demeanor, all these things. I was like, oh, well, I can't be helpful here. And then I started speaking more with older teachers who are not older teachers, but teachers who teach older children. And I was like, oh, actually, maybe this is where I fit. However, the same skills are needed from the younger grades to these older grades. And I was like, wow, there's a lot of ground that we need to cover. It can't just be one teacher. And went to Sac State, did that, and then I was in my credential program. And Sac State is, I don't know if piloting is the correct word, but maybe pioneering is a better word. They're very much rooted in social justice and speaking about these issues consistently. And I had a teacher there, Dr. Merrill, who runs the language and literacy program, and she shoulder tapped me basically for her program. I was like, you're doing it, so. And I fell in love with it, and she was like, you need to be, this is where you fit. And I got very lucky to consistently have people in my life who pushed me to figure out where I fit in this form of literacy.
Can you talk to us about, it mentioned it in the film, first teachers, we both have that experience, right? Our mothers are both, hey, well, you're going to do X, Y, and Z. How important is that? I think it's the most important piece of that film, but where is that, and how do you navigate that space when you're talking to your parents of your students?
So, I'm seeing this problem that there's this huge divide between teachers and parents that we are seen as an adversary, that we are seen as these obstacles to get over instead of as a united front. And my issue with that is that I want to be a united front for these parents. We are a united front against your child's learning. Like we all want your child to learn. I'm not an obstacle for your child to overcome just to get to the next phase, to work a baseline job because they never learned how to read in the first place. And that unity among teacher and parent, I think, needs to be made much more clear. And the way that I think that we can do that is by stepping into our communities earlier and showing that, like, look at how much just speaking to your child every day, just narrating what you're doing even, how much that increases their achievement by tenfold or however much the statistic may be. First teachers are mothers, are parents, and just, it doesn't, you don't have to be wealthy to speak, but you do need to have a wealth of knowledge, and you do need to be able to access that information. And the only way we can do that is if we start like re-educating people essentially on the importance of literacy and reading.
Can we do that really quickly? So, the 5 pillars, right, of reading: phonemic awareness, phonics, vocabulary, fluency, and then comprehension. I took the Science of Reading course last year because I was like, this is not working. I don't know what this is, but we need to find another approach to this. And in my research, I'm finding a ton of free resources.
Yes.
A lot of this, right, is easily accessible to people that don't have, right? Resources are a barrier. What resources are out there for parents to tap into that you know off the top of your head? It doesn't have to be an exhaustive list, but where can they start so they can take that to their homes?
I mean, simply enough, we're talking before school starts?
Yeah, before school,
okay.
during school.
Simply enough, there is free books all over Swan County. So much access to these free books. And it's simple, an ABC book, a color book, things like that, just to explain colors. They have tons of books also in dual language. So it's also in English and in Spanish. And so there isn't that language barrier there either. Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought a little bit. But off the top of my head, I'm sorry, I should have Googled some more. I can't think of when I think free resources, I think of my body, right? I think of just simply enough, just using my fingers to count that, you're demonstrating on here. Shh, in, ship, just running your hands, right? Using your feet, making things a game. Again, that is, I know not a resource per se, but it is free to use our bodies and to use our minds in that correlated way.
Yeah, I like that. I think that I wasn't going there with that.
Sorry, that's exactly what I
No, I wasn't going there with that, but I should have. At the most basic level, right? We have everything that we need to be successful right here, right here, right? And so I was thinking about free resources that other people have provided, but even that can be taken away. So what do we have, right? That we can say, no, I can teach myself how to read, I can teach others how to read based on what I have here, right? I love that. I'm also thinking of public libraries, public spaces, museums, right? Music,
so
right? Yeah. So I love that. Thank you. That was really good. What about environment? How important is environment to raising up kids that can read?
It's incredibly important, but it's not about the status that I think people are automatically thinking when we say an environment. We're not talking status. We are talking about fostering a love and an importance on something, on education in particular, and specifically reading. I know you're going to jump to this question later, but
Just jump to to it now.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, go ahead, what is it?
The nation's report thing that you sent me, about we automatically pull those fourth grade reading levels. And consistently, we see people using the fourth grade data. And fourth grade data is always going to be extreme, because fourth grade is the grade where we start not learning how to read. We are reading to learn now, and that's where we will see the biggest disparities. That being said, those interventions need to take place before the fourth grade, because then we have a freshman who are reading at a second grade level because they have plateaued at second grade, third grade.
Do you think that the change, I'm sorry, do you think that the change in the fourth grade is because that's when the curriculum changes?
Oh, yes, that is when our curriculum.
And that's problematic.
Oh, 100%. But what's also problematic is, again, that we aren't using evidence-based skills, or consistently those curriculums are taken away or revoked. And, to get down to it, just like they said on here, this is a business. And, Pearson is one of the major publishing houses in education. They also are what you pay Pearson to become a teacher, doing the EdTPA, which is not the correct way to teach. It goes against every single thing that you learn in your credential program. But you pay $400 to take your EdTPA, and then they decide if what you wrote adheres to what you already have to buy from them, and if it's not, you rebuy that. And I just first and foremost need to recognize that these are businesses that have excellent business models. But it's our job to get kids to not only work around this business, but also as teachers, other teachers, we need to work around and find ways that we can uproot, I guess is a better word, these businesses and systems in place, like Pearson, for example. I knew if I had passed that to be in my first try, I was going after Pearson.
I think that's great. I think just as a side note to everyone in here, the California Teachers Association is fighting right now to remove the EdTPA and CalTPA requirement for teachers, because, like you're saying, it is a cycle, right?
Yes.
And if you want parents, or excuse me, if you want teachers, quality teachers, for your students, because we're experiencing an unprecedented exodus, right? In education, then let's remove barriers to education, right? So I think that's really good. Your point to fourth grade data being aggressive,
Yes.
right?
But I want to see that first grade data. I want to see the second grade data, because are these kids actually at grade level? Are they truly reading on their own and understanding it? Or are we just memorizing words to get by? And that is the key tell that I think is so important meeting these younger grades, because, we have ninth graders who are not remotely close to being on par with where they should be. And that is alarming. These gentlemen in my fifth period, which I have all boys in my fifth period, which is another huge issue I think we should talk about too, but I don't have time. And my group of boys though, in my academic fit class, they are going to be our future. These boys are going to be leaders. They have the charisma, they have the drive for it, but they do not have the access to a basic skill of being able to sound out a word and understanding that pre means before, so they can't figure out the meaning of pre-term, but that means before this term, or simple words, right, like that.
That reminds me, I'm sorry. That reminds me of when we look at problems. I'm a political science major, so I look at problems through a historical lens, and kids not being able to understand that pre means before reminds me of literacy taxes, right? You can't vote if you don't know that. True story, my grandmother wasn't able to vote, right? When she got her rights to do so, because she didn't know that a couch was a sofa. right?
Mhm.
Problematic, we all know, right? But when they spoke about the pipeline,
Mhm.
right? That illiteracy is the pipeline too, right? I think he said homelessness is the pipeline to prison. I thought illiteracy as a political science major is also the pipeline to problematic politicians, right? Being elected to office. Because if you can't read, you can't fill out a ballot. If you can't think critically, if you can't comprehend what someone is saying and why these things are ridiculous, you can't
Be able to challenge
Yeah.
the systems in place.
effectively, right? So can you speak to sort of the historicals that we should
Yes.
take when talking about reading?
So, there's so much to say. I'm gonna gather all my thoughts on it. Something I think to be said, and my mom and I actually discuss this quite often, is that, and this isn't to sit here and just bash our entire school system, but in a way it is too, because our schools aren't here to foster genius and to foster creativity. They are here to foster a workforce that can in turn make more money. Like we are set up as a business as well. And I think being able to identify that a little bit more clearly and then be able to go, like maybe but again that takes that critical thinking skill of going, wait a second, and wanting that change. And there's so many people that are fearful too, even myself right now, right? I'm like, oh, I'm nervous to be, speaking my thoughts on this because it does make you a target to speak on things. But if you are educated on that topic, it should always be a conversation and never an argument. And our goal is to change these kids and to change not just the kids, but the people teaching them and the parents raising them, the grandparents seeing them, like all these people that are in their lives as influence. We have to come together collectively to uproot that system in place and to start to foster actual genius and creativity, not a workforce.
I love that, which leads me into my next question, but like you just answered it, right? So I just want to make sure, I'm gonna ask the question only to reiterate the point, right? And that is, does the business council, the guys that are really running the show, right? Do they want illiterate people? Is that the goal, right? Is all of this a smoke screen? Yeah, you know what I mean?
I think to an extent, yes. I think that we are not meant to challenge the system. We're meant to be pacified just enough and consistently enough to not ever invoke true change in these policies that are in place and these major house business publishing, education businesses like Pearson. It's the only example I can think of. They're
HMH.
HMH, Pearson, things like that. That yes, like it is meant to kind of be this illusion of success or an illusion of progress, when in reality it's just meant to kind of keep us pacified enough so that there isn't ever going to be true change. And I don't have a fix-all solution.
Yeah.
I don't think any of us do. I don't think that there is a fix-all solution. However, every single person needs to be an advocate for one thing. And that is, I tell my students this constantly, especially in our social justice unit. Your fight might not be my fight, but my fight is just as important, and so is yours. So we have to all be supportive of each other's advocacy, and you have to be an advocate for something. You can't just go through life being, I guess, passive. Yeah, passive, I would say.
How important is everyone's fighting, or how important is it that everyone take on the fight of illiteracy?
That is, I think, young words almost in a way because of how feel right to read
Yeah.
should be right.
Yeah.
And being unable to read exiles you almost in a way from being able to enter into any room of importance and be a voice for yourself, for your community, politically, all things like that. And I think just giving people the space to speak, like this is a space for me to speak, right? Allowing that space to be there, and not having someone jump up and try to correct or try to, like sometimes it is my space to listen to students. Sometimes it's their space that they need to listen to me too, like, right? So there's a give and take constantly. I'm by no means an expert in all, and I'm constantly learning, and we talked about this briefly before too, that as an educator, the moment that I feel I have learned everything is the moment that I should no longer be an educator. And the moment that I think I'm a perfect teacher, I should no longer be a teacher. But however, if I always have the mindset that I'm a student, I think, sorry, I kind of want what we were talking about,
You didn't
but,
say what you're supposed to know.
but that is the true, I think, key here is that we have to find what we are going to be advocates for, and if that's everyone advocating for literacy, so we can accurately advocate for whatever it is that you need, whether that be that this person is an advocate for gay rights, or this person is an advocate for missing Indigenous women, like whatever it may be, that all starts with the ability to read though, first to get your message out there.
Yeah, I love that. A couple more questions. I know that this, according to the film, this is the information age, right? And when kids can't read, they can't access, like to your point, the information. What I want to know is what you think students are missing out on when they can't read, right? Like putting your nerd hat on, right? Because we can talk about this all day. I tell my students, when you can't read, you miss out on worlds that are so much cooler than this one, right? Where things can be wrong with the world, but it all works out okay. What are they missing out in your mind when they can't read?
The first thing that comes to mind is just opportunity, and that may be opportunity to experience a world, opportunity to feel, like to experience empathy, to identify with someone beyond just themselves or in their family. There is something powerful in seeing yourself in art, and that is what we're truly talking about, is art in its entirety, and literature, reading, this room, this is art, and if you don't have the language, to access that speaks to something. There's something called language deprivation, and it's commonly referred to within the deaf community specifically, that they are deprived of language. It is not that this deaf person is not intelligent, it is that they have been deprived of language, and I think the use of that word is so important because, yes, it is commonly used to our communities that are deaf, but it also speaks to our students. They are experiencing an absolute deprivation of language and being able to express themselves and their feelings.
I love that. I know that you're solution oriented and we had this conversation a couple of weeks ago. And me too, right? And
Don't come to me with problems. We don't have solutions ready.
Right? Because then you're just wasting everything.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
So yeah, what I want to know, going back to your earlier point about using your body, right? And I know that that's not where you wanted to go, or that's not where I wanted you to go, but I'm stuck on that, right? Because our bodies are being used. right? Especially when we talk about the business council, right? We talk about building pipelines of either prisoners or production workers, right? So our bodies are oftentimes used without our consent and without our understanding. What do you think our first step is to a solution, considering that we have everything that we need right here?
Purely just going in and educating our communities, and as the parents, and being able to not only like reconcile this idea that like teachers are against them, but also being able to provide the tools necessary and teaching these tools, right, that we know as teachers or whatever it may be, to parents as well, and show them that like not only is your child a genius and just as capable and intelligent, so are you. And I think parents get stuck sometimes in thinking like, well, I don't have that education, so I can't provide that. Meanwhile, my parents aren't college educated, but still found the importance in teaching me to be well-read. And something we just have to get into our communities earlier than kindergarten. Because if a kid shows up to kindergarten unable to read, they're already behind. And I have this conversation quite often with newer parents, you know, their kids are going to kindergarten, and quite a few times this past year actually, that, oh, well, she's about to go to school, so she's going to learn to read at school. Well, like, no, they're going to teach her to pick out books and focus on these things, but you're already setting your teacher up for a fail in a way. Like, these teachers aren't going to sit here and they can't, what am I trying to say? Teachers are unable to like unlock and actually provide instructional, like just like beauty and just like total education if they can't even, they haven't even touched the basics, you know. That is where I think this true like start is like we have to get into the communities earlier. We have to start with parents sooner and children sooner, because it's unrealistic and unfair for our early, it's not early childhood, because that's
Early childhood development.
no, it's kindergarten through, you know, like sixth grade. TK. Mm-hmm. So, like TK through like sixth grade, that is primary, not so secondary. So primary, those teachers, yeah, no, it's okay. K6.
I can't count.
That we are setting those teachers up for a fail because none of these kids are getting the proper skills and tools they need, and then in turn their secondary school is set up for fail. And we're like, then we're mad at primary teachers from like, what are we supposed to do? And it really has to start with that we have to have something, at least in our district, open to the community before school starts on that summer thing. Everyone in the community is invited. And I think, please come meet your teachers. And whether that's at very careful how teachers or broad teachers, but like a community event that is for these parents to meet the teachers that their kids will one day have, whether that's at the high school level, fourth grade level, however it may be. And I know that's probably much easier said than done, but we have to start unifying parents and teachers earlier and sooner.
But it's not, right? Easier said than done. It can be done. Just listen. I don't care. It needs to happen kind of guy, right? So,
I'm down for it. I'm
Yeah.
not sure the first step to take, so I'm like, but I can tell you what we need to do, but I'm not sure the first step. So
We've
I don't
got
want
an idea. We've got people that control spaces.
Mm-hmm.
We can do that, right? And I think that that's something that should be done. I know that we have to wrap up, so I'm just going to give you the last word. But before I do, I want you guys to know that the NAACP is a legacy organization with a proven history of fighting the good fight. And so if you are not a member of Tri-City NAACP, please reach out to our president, who will get you locked in, because there's power, political scientists speaking now, there's power in numbers. There's also power in money. So if you can't provide your body, we also take cash, so in checks. So reach out to our fearless leader to see how you can get involved with the NAACP. But yeah, your last remarks.
Reading is absolute power, and being able to experience true potential and tap into that really starts with the ability to read. And the more kids that we get to read, the more success we are going to see in not just like our schools, but the world beyond the schools in society, which is what school is meant to prepare these kids for, to be functioning, active members in our society, which we all live in. And so everyone has a stake in this game. But thank you so much for having me.
Thank you guys. Give it a quick video of that. Thank you all so much. Ms. Walker Gibson is gonna take us on out of here. Pia. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Yeah, you guys were great too.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here.
Well, everyone, I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much. James did a wonderful outro, so I don't have too much more to add. But thank you for spending Sunday with us. Thank you for coming to watch and to hear about something that's so important, not just to our community, but to the entire nation. I hope that you found value and some insightful information you will take back. Again, please tell others, please encourage others. When you see our children out, encourage them to read, encourage their parents. When you see different events that are happening, please support our library. I want to give a special thank you to On Stage Vacaville, Journey Downtown, our Solano County Library for supporting our event here. And please spend time at the libraries, to the librarians, so that we can help foster an environment of learning, reading, and we can start to see and make changes with our literacy. Thank you very much.
That's one of the areas James wants to study and have a career in that, the cracking soldiers and malware attacks and all that.
Someone in here in second grade reading level. Everyone is to assume it's them.
That part, I heard that.
Yeah.